So this is the first video in the big data series. So this video is basically for the people who are preparing for big data preparation, the AWS big data interviews. As you know that many companies are focusing on DevOps and big data practices. So it's even if you don't know anything about it, it's okay. You just have a look on these videos and prepare yourself. And basically these videos which I am preparing is your final interviews. I mean, if you consider these videos as a training video, then it may not be right, because a lot of concepts that we cover in our training is not covered here. So we are just connecting the dots here. While on the interview day, whatever the things you need to know in order to crack the interview, that's something we are going to cover. And for that, maybe having 7 to 8 interviews for AWS Big Data, because it's a large lengthy course. There's a lot of topics that we need to cover. So as you know that big data environment consists ingestion, consumption and transformation. So if you see here, the service collection point, the collection services means from where you will collect the data, that may be from your on-prem applications or from your web applications, or from Twitter or any sources that you are collecting the data. So the collection services will help you to collect the data from different sources and keep the data in respective storage. Because in the big data environment, normally we worked in Hadoop environment, so Hadoop HDFS environment, we'll keep the data in HDFS and then we do the transformation with the Spark or Hive. But in AWS big data environment, the transformation and ETL part is highly convenient. It's very easy. It's compared to the on-prem big data environment. We'll see how it is. But if somebody asks you during interview that, okay, this is what, why do you think that big data, AWS big data is much easier than the on-prem environment? So the first thing is that when somebody asks you about the cloud thing, the first answer should be the scalability. The scalability means how much storage you can allocate, how much resources you can allocate on fly if your data grows like anything. So if your business grows, your data grows. So if your data grows, you need some space to accommodate that data. And for that point of view, the storage S3 is far much better than any other storage. We know that, but the other part is S3 is not HDFS thing. So on-prem has some advantage and limitations, but cloud has so many advantage. Because of the scalability, one of those things is scalability. Then the processing. So, and second thing is that on-demand services, which we cannot, create or afford on during our on-prem thing. So, this is the collection part. This is the storage part. This is the processing part. So, processing part is something where you will see that something like your Hive, your Glue, or your Spark transformation that you do. So if you see here, the AWS Glue, AWS Lambda, Amazon ML, these are the SageMaker is a service that we will see that. So these are the services are part of the processing part. And then we have analysis and the visualization part. So any big data environment has 4 parts. One is the collection, which is data ingestion part, and this part is data transformation part, and this is the part of data consumption part. My analysis and visualization, you are consuming the data and you are creating a new dashboard and you are analyzing the data. So this is the formal introduction of the big data. And definitely, if you join the class, you will get a lot of detailed information about this AWS big data environment. how things works in the big data in AWS. So topics for this today's session is the data collection, data storage, data processing, data analysis, and the data visualization and data security. While answering this big data environment or any cloud interview, basically, if you involve your story, basically, means your experience in multiple services, that is always the winning idea kind of thing. What I'm trying to say is, if you know many services in AWS as a part of your experience, then it will be a much better controlled interview you can have. For example, if you know the DevOps thing in AWS, then make sure that minimum 6 to 7 services you are master in. And it's not tough, guys. I mean, especially in the AWS world and the cloud world, it is not that tough to manage those things. But only challenge is a day to day. Every day you need to do the same thing. It's boring sometimes. Because there is no hardware or something like that you make you feel that you are working in some big environment. It's something very simple, fancy API, 5-6 APIs are there, and you need to work on that one. So cloud is you are working in a silos, basically. When you work in a cloud environment, you don't feel that you are working in a very big data center. So that's a drawback of the cloud, because you are working everything is remotely kind of thing. So some data is somewhere and you are working far away from that data. So that's okay. So let's see how thing goes well in the data collection part. So what do you need to know to pass the big data exam or big data interview, basically? So understanding the data ingestion, transformation, and consumption, these are the very important part that you need to understand. Once you complete the flow, you need to tell your story about how thing works in your environment when you are working in AWS big data environment. Means your let's say your application is consuming the data from some web application and your web application is it has a streaming data. It's generating the data like a Twitter, for example, Twitter or any other social media. So that social media accounts or social media platform, they continuously generate the data. That's called streaming data, and that streaming data is coming to your analysis in AWS environment. So the streaming data will come in the Kinesis streaming data environment, and then from there you are getting the data to the data lake, and then from data lake to data AWS Glue environment. So that is something you need to show the flow, basically. And that's for that one small project or understanding of if you do the lab almost 30-40 times, then it will be very easy to at least answer some questions during the interview. Because in interview, the interviewer is keen to understand whether you understand the flow or not. Because as a data engineer or the data architect, it is very important to for a person to understand the flow, whether he understand how thing works or not, rather than how better is specific to in a data ingestion tool. You are master in one specific tool, but you don't know how other services are connected to your services. It's very important, guys. So always look at the big picture, means the 360-degree overview kind of thing. So once complete flow of data, that you can say that in our system, our AWS system is coming from, the data is coming from the streaming application or near real-time streaming application or the batch application. So there are three ways. One is a streaming, one is a near real-time, and one is a batch thing. How you are handling the data for analysis, that is something you can explain, that you need to explain how any mobile application is working. So we'll have a small mobile application lab in our training environment. I will create the video for that as well. You need to have some understanding about visualization part, and you should be able to explain complete flow of the data and explain your story. So there are three types of data which we will see in AWS environment. It's a real time, one is a near real time, and one is a batch data. So this is typical interview question, that how many types of data are there in AWS environment. So you can say that this is a real time, near real time, and batch data. So when you say streaming is the kind of data streams is like a serverless streaming data service that makes it easy to capture, process, and store the data stream of any scale. So if you are getting a streaming data, then Kinesis data stream is the best solution for that. I mean, that's the stream. The service will help you to capture the data, and the service will store the data, and then you can analyze the data whenever you need. So points to remember here, there are some limitations for that. Like Kinesis, when you accept the data, Kinesis data stream is a service that will accept the data, right on, like throughout the year, 0 to 365 days. It has the ability to reprocess the data, means it will store the data. But again, it will store the data, but you cannot modify the data once the data is there in the shard. I mean, it's there in the storage of the Kinesis data stream. Data which share the same partition goes to the same shard. Shard is basically it's a storage for keeping the data. The shard has a sequence of data records in the stream. That sequence is something very important. It serves as a base throughput unit for the Kinesis data stream. This is something, during interview they ask this question, that if you have a credit card transactions going on and suddenly internet get disconnected. And this is some real world scenario, and this is a typical interview question also. So how you will manage those things in AWS big data environment? So the important thing is to know that Lambda, if you say, we are using Lambda services to manage our credit card transactions on some DynamoDB or something on our application, the web application, then this shard and this Lambda services are stateless in a sense that whatever is happening, there is no record. So Lambda, even though you are using Lambda, there is no record transactions going on. So let's say you start the credit card transaction and suddenly internet get disconnected, and the second time, after 5 minutes the internet going come back. Then how the system will come to know that there was a transaction was going on, and we need to finish the transaction before we start any new transaction. And that's where this DynamoDB and the stateful services comes in the picture. And that's why the Kinesis, they are saying what they are saying, that what is the shard means. The shard will make sure that it will record the stream or record the data in sequence. So if the sequence are there, then you can easily check it out that some transaction is missing here, and then you can complete the transaction. This is typical interview question, guys. I mean, always remember, I'm giving you more and more hint about interview thing, but remember one thing, it's a thumb rule: get good training and ask so many questions during the training, because those questions means your knowledge. If you don't ask anything, very rare, very exceptional thing is there if you have good considered knowledge. Otherwise, when you ask some questions, that will clarify your doubts and as well as increase your knowledge and your confidence. So what is Kinesis data stream capacity mode? So there are two modes basically. One is a provision mode and one is a on-demand mode. When you create the Kinesis data stream, you will see that one is a provision mode and one is a on-demand mode. So obviously the provision mode means you need to define some certain things in advance, and the on-demand mode means as and when things get change, AWS service will provide more and more scalable options over there. So, remember here, when you consider those things, always consider the cost. The on-demand mode has more cost involved in that as compared to the provision mode. So this is typically, this is also a very typical interview questions in that. So consider the scenario where you have a limited budget. When you say limited budget, then go for provisions, provision mode. But if you are looking for more capacity planning and more performance, we need more performance, and when the cost is not involved, this on-demand scalability is there, the solution. The security in Kinesis data stream. So always in cloud interviews, they will ask some questions regarding the security, whether it's a DevOps, whether it's AWS solution architect interview, or any other AWS data interview, AWS development interview, SDK interview. So security is the key, the security first architecture. So always remember, AWS is a security first architecture. And when you sit for the interview, giving the interview, always remember, if you are giving a big data interview, then tell them that my company is like a data first approach for AWS big data kind of environment. So that shows that you are basically from the big data environment. So similarly, AWS is a huge company. There are many 200 plus services, but as a thumb rule in the company, they use security as a best practices. So you will ask so many questions about the security. The security question answering starts from IAM. So the first is the control access. Your access and authorizations are controlled by IAM policies. So in that you can tell them that we normally follow certain IAM rules that is compliant to our company standard, and we use those rules to give the access. We don't add the users and give them the special access. So we if the users are there or based on the application, we add the certain roles to manage our security requirement. So people who are really need those access, they will get the access through role. So giving the access through role is more smarter way than creating a user, adding a group, and then adding a policies, and then those giving the access to those groups are it's not a secured way. But IAM policies and IAM roles are better options to give the access. Next, second thing is the data, the encryption in flight using HTTPS endpoints, and encryption at rest using KMS. What do you mean by that? So when the data travels, you need some sort of encryption. And when the data rests, when the data comes to your storage for a storage point of view, when the data get stored somewhere, that is called rest, the encryption at rest. So encryption and in flight using HTTPS endpoints, you can tell them that you use HTTPS endpoints, and encryption at rest using KMS. KMS is a service from AWS that provides the encryption at rest using KMS. So it's a key management service. The KMS is a key management service. So the first thing is IAM policy. The second thing is HTTPS endpoints. Third thing is encryption at rest using KMS. We can implement encryption, decryption the client side as well, and VPC endpoints for Kinesis to access within the VPC. What do you mean by this VPC endpoints, and why we are talking about it? So VPC endpoints helps the user to connect a non-VPC user, the person who is there outside the VPC, without going to the internet. And that's why the VPC endpoints are there. VPC endpoints are much more secure than any other way. And monitoring the API calls and your AWS cloud trail, These are the security mechanism, security Kinesis data stream to provide the security. I mean, this is are the 4 or 5 things, but when it comes to the security, you have to have some answers to that. So first is IAM policy, then is HTTPS endpoints for traveling, encryption in flight, KMS, then VPC endpoints. These are the security options you have to manage in your Kinesis data stream. So this is the lab, basically how to proceed with the lab. You need to, this is the lab you will be doing. I mean, if you need any help, then you can call me and touch me. This is the like a hands-on thing. So what we will be doing in this hands-on thing, that we will be logging to this AWS console, and you will create AWS configuration on your EC2 instance, and then execute this command to create Kinesis AWS Kinesis put records, and then you describe those things and then consume records. So in this lab, what we are trying to achieve here is how the thing works in a Kinesis data stream. So Kinesis data stream, when you create the Kinesis data stream, as we discussed, there is a provision mode, there is an on-demand mode. Then you select the provision mode, and then provision mode, when you select the provision mode, then you will see that there is a product producer and the consumer thing. So this way you will do it from command line way, or you can do it through the AWS go to log into the console and the GUI way. So this way is more popular because it's a command line thing, and AWS put record, you will put some records on your Kinesis data stream, and then you consume those records. Or from other point of view, you can consume those records to show that you are consuming those records through in Kinesis data stream. So it's a Kinesis data stream. You are two-way. It's like a two-way bungle kind of thing. You will get the records. You will put the records, and you will consume the records as well. So try this one. Take a screenshot of this one, and then try this one, and then let me know if you face any issue. Till then, please let me know how you like this video. If you like this video, then please let me know and subscribe my channel. And remember, guys, I'm there to help you for your interviews. So if you want any help in an interview, then I'm there to help you with this. Second thing, Kinesis producer consumer. So producer and consumer thing, what are the difference between those things, the Kinesis producer and consumer? What are the things we say when we say consumer, and what you mean by producer? So producer means the application which will generate the data. SDK is there, KPL is there. KPL means Kinesis platform library. Kinesis agents is also there. So these are the things, if you install on your in your AWS EC2 instance, this will generate the data. The producer means tools and program which generates the data for Kinesis data stream. I mean, there are other things also. Maybe applications are generating the data, but in general, if you are AWS environment, these are the things will generate the data, and these are the things that will consume the data. So consumer means AWS Kinesis stream, and consumer is AWS Lambda, right? AWS Kinesis Firehouse. Now, what is the difference between this Firehouse thing and this Kinesis data stream? Kinesis stream. So the Firehouse thing is it's not for the streaming. It's a near real time. It's not real time. It's a near real time, because as you see, there is a gap between the real time and the near real time, and some delays are there, and that delay happens because it is at the second level. So it is not at the landing point, it is at the second floor, and that's why we call it a Kinesis Firehouse is a near real time. The near real time, they are there to consume your data. This is AWS Lambda, AWS Firehouse, Kinesis Consumer Library, KCL, and SDK. But one thing you might have noticed here, this same thing, most of the things are there in the producer also, and it's not that much difference, right? If you say SDK is here also, SDK is here also. So SDK is, that it's a development environment. You can prepare and create the application as a consumer, or you can create the application as a producer. So SDK, we are mentioning SDK as a interchangeable thing. Well, challenges and solutions in the Kinesis data stream. In SDK, each shard has 2 MB total aggregate support. This is a typical interview question, guys. What are the challenges? So when data is coming to the Kinesis data stream, they will ask you some question that what are the challenges you might face or you see in your big data environment when the real time or the Kinesis, the streaming data. So the real challenge is, by default, let's say, consider the example that you purchase a car. When you purchase a car, it's not something that you take a car and directly go to the road. There are many things you do in order before we start riding those cars on the road. So because that in the real world this might not work, so that's why you change something in the car, like headlights, or like for example braking system, like for example the oil change, or those things. You change those things. That you need to change, otherwise it will not work. Similarly, when you take the service Kinesis data stream, by default the capacity and the configuration of the shards are different than when you need those things in the real world. Consider the example, the 5 consumers are consumer applications are consuming the data from the same shard. Let's say this is the shard, and 5 consumers are consuming the data from this shard. Consider that, this is the example. So this shard has dedicated or fixed capacity of, let's say, 2 MB per second or 1 MB per second, something, and you need to share those 1 MB with all 4-5 guys. So it means that per shard the consumer can poll once a second and receive only 400 KB, which is a bit challenging for a streaming application. So more and more application if you add, then one shard is certainly not enough. But you cannot add 5, 6, 10 excuse me, you cannot add more shards just on fly. So KCL share multiple shards with multiple consumers in one group. So the solution is that they will find the group KCL. So once we have multiple shards in that group will cater the requirement and cater the the solution or the whatever the requirement comes from the client, that will cater it. So you have multiple shards in a group, that is called KCL group, and then it will serve these clients. So these are the shards that are there in the KCL group. The shard 1, shard 2 are in this KCL group, shard 3 and 4 are in this KCL group. Now this group will satisfy the requirement for your different applications. So KCL share multiple shard with multiple consumer in one group. The KCL has a checkpoint facility which integrates with the DynamoDB so that consumer can start consuming the data where they left in case of any disconnect. So this is, I said earlier, the entire concept of Lambda, the automation things are stateless, guys. That's what something you need to explain in an interview, that we need some mechanism that if something it get disconnected, it will start from the point where it left, and that's why this checkpoint facility is there in your KCL thing. The KCL is a very important thing that in Kinesis data stream that you need to explain to the interviewer. So what we have learned, SDK is a basic thing. SDK is a basic level, but the KCL has some smartness. It will club 1 or 2 shards and then manage the entire environment. So that's something you need to explain in an interview. Till then, I will arrange the next video. Till then, guys, happy learning.